Hi there, welcome to live stream Yoga with Louise, tips and cues to keep you safe and strong on the mat. Today we're going to be focusing on strengthening and toning abs and arms, and we'll mix it up just a little bit, interspersing bursts of dynamic movement with some stationary holding poses. As always, play where you're comfortable, modify where you need to and feel comfortable to pause the stream or to perhaps just ease your way into child pose should you need to take a little rest between sets. You ready? Let's hit the mat. We're going to set up for today's class standing more or less in the middle of the mat, facing towards the top end. I want you to open your feet maybe just a little bit wider than hip width distance in apart so that you're in a comfortable rooting samasthiti. You're going to start thinking of squeezing the energy between the inner thighs together. Pull up softly from the pelvic floor towards your chest line and float your arms into a little T-frame. We're going to play with a little half a helicopter, taking an off-center spin side to side, bending and pivoting on the back leg and starting to shoot for a nice little stretch, a little off-center oblique stretch through the lower abdominals. And you're going to also reach long and lengthen through your arms as you play with that little half spin side to side. Then start to think about changing it up, starting to tap the alternate shoulder while keeping that same rotational movement through the body. Keep bending and pivoting on the back leg. Keep giving me the longest spine that you can. And then change it up one last time, thinking of tapping the opposite bum with your hands or your fingertips. As you do so, as you connect to your booty, think of tightening it. Your booty, that is. Let's do two more. As you complete the last one, you're going to keep that wider stance that you had today, and we're going to marry a chair with a wide squat line. And every time you come into the squat, instead of bringing your hands to prayer, I want you to interlace the hands, fist them, and pump or push into the palms so that you can feel your arms working. You're going to take about 10 little seats, bumping the weight back into your bum and your heels, taking a nice wide stance on the mat today. Every time you drop down into that chair-like position, Utkatasana, try to start systematically dropping your bum a little bit lower to the floor so that you can really feel the legs working, the core working. Make sure you pump into the arms. Then maybe mix it up by drawing up one knee at a time in between your little chair. So think of pulling up on a little piece of string that you've got connected to the belly button that ties the top of your thighs to your core so that you get a nice little contraction in the core every time you bring that one leg up. Find a rhythm that works for you. I'm setting a moderate pace, but you can mix it up or slow it down. Let's do one more. From here, you're going to set yourself up in a high kneeling frame, and I want you to relax the feet behind you, but make sure that your feet are stacking behind your knees. You're going to start kneeling up nice and tall with your shoulders, your hips, and your knees in a nice long line. On an exhale, nod your chin towards your chest. On an inhale, think of cupping your bum, bumping your hips forward, and taking a supported back bend. Then start moving dynamically between the nice, tall kneeling frame with your chin drop and your little camel prep work, cupping your bum, bumping your hips forward slightly so that your hips stay stacked over your knees as you come into that little camel line. Find a nice pace, a brisker pace that works for you. And then find that nice tall stack. Drop your hands, palms down to the top of your knees, and we'll lean the camel line back just off the center line, and then float back to our start position, shooting for a nice stretch through the lower belly area and try to forge a long line from your knees towards your breast line. Sync your movements to your breath. Look for that work in the lower belly area. Let's shoot for 2 more. And then we'll find our way from here into staff pose Dandasana. Perhaps sit back on your heels, slide off one side and slip the legs out in front of you, making sure that you've got enough room to play behind you. Sit up nice and tall with your feet about hip-width distance apart. Make sure you're not slouching off your bum bones. Lift your bum flesh off the mat. Sit up nice and tall on your bum bones. Tuck your shoulders over your hips. Brace softly into your feet and reach through your fingertips, looking for the longest spine that you can find as you come into staff Dandasana. Then begin moving dynamically between staff pose and a fisted table. Make a little fist, draw the hands back, lean back just off your tailbone, bend the knees, push off your fists, bump your belly up into a tabletop line, and then reverse back to your start position, shooting for roughly 10 flows, if you can, between your seated staff frame and your tabletop line. Give me a fisted line so that you're giving the wrists a little bit of a rest. If you prefer, you can mix it up and you can give me fingertips forward or fingertips back as you come into that tabletop line. Try to get a sense of what you're doing with the weight distribution in your body when you come up into the table. Try to even out the weight between the legs and the arms so that they're carrying the load evenly. Let's do 2 more and then we'll try to hold the last tabletop line, maybe for 10 counts. As you float up, maybe rock the weight back and forth between the legs and the arms and then come to stillness somewhere between the two and hold your frame. Keep your neckline in neutral so that you're not putting any tension on the back of the neck. Use your glutes, use your quads, use your hamstrings, use your core. Use your arms. And then softly bring it back down into a seated frame. And from your seated frame, you're going to drop down onto the elbows. Elbows are stacking more or less underneath your armpits. Try not to collapse your frame. So think of softly pushing off your elbow points and your forearms and growing your bosom up towards the ceiling. Feet just inside a hip-width distance apart, or you can clip them together. You're going to give me 10 single leg lifts on the right, trying to lift and lower that leg and then hover the heel and the back of your leg just off the floor without touching the mat. Then hold as high as you can for 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, change sides. Lifting and lowering. I'm working at just above my shoulder line. Not kicking up too high so that I can control the movement. Use your core. 10 little dynamic lifts and then hold for 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. See if you can double up. Maybe tucking your fingertips just underneath your bum if you need to, and give me 10 doubles. Really using that core, maybe looking softly down towards your pubis or towards your feet so that you're not straining the back of your neck. Shoot for 10 little double lifts and then hold for 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. You're going to give me one fall back to come into a U hold. Think of floating the hands out from underneath you, hollowing out your belly, palms are looking up to the ceiling, and you're holding a soft U-like frame, or you can give me a brace into those feet if you prefer. Nice little bit of contraction in the core. Then softly melt into the mat. Take a recovery breath or 2 before floating your hands overhead, palms looking up to the ceiling, maybe taking a little stretch here, looking for a bit of length in the lower belly area, and then bending your knees and connecting the soles of the feet to the mat. We're going to play with a modified tabletop jackknife. Take a big breath in to prepare and begin with your spine in neutral. On an exhale, tilt your pelvis to the 12 o'clock position. Scoop to peel up off the shoulders. Draw your legs into table and float your arms alongside your hips. And then inhale to float everything down. Exhale to scoop and peel up. Look for that contraction in your core. Pause, hold it, and then float back. Shoot for 10 repetitions if you can. Maybe giving me a nice shooting breath, pursing the lips and thinking of shooting the breath out. Almost like steam escaping from a pressure cooker. Let's do one more. Hold the last one for a count of 10, holding that contraction in your core. Lower back is imprinted, weight is off the shoulders, and you've got about 2 fingers of air between the chin and the chest. We're going to morph from this tabletop position into a rocker, and we're going to marry it with a boat hold. Brace your hands softly behind your thighs, maybe bracing softly into your feet. You can open up your legs about hip-width distance apart. Rock up, just off the tailbone. Extend your legs softly into a boat line, and then round out your spine, rocking back as far as your shoulder blades and back up. If doing the leg extension is too much for you, just stay with a gentle rocking motion, keeping your legs in a soft tabletop line. Otherwise, little extension of the legs, marrying your little rock with boat Navasana. Make sure when you're rocking back that you're pretending somebody's pushing on your breastbone, round out your back. Allow momentum to carry you back as far as your shoulder blades, and then rock back up, using your core to control the rock. Shooting for roughly 10 little rocks with a leg extension into boat as you come up. And then let's hold the last boat line, either staying in table and bracing your hands behind your thighs, or maybe floating your hands alongside your legs, or coming into a full boat line, using your inner thighs and a really strong pull-up from the pelvic floor along your lower abs towards your belly button line. Hold. Then gently sweep your legs underneath you, change your orientation on the mat, and ease your way into a 4-point kneeling frame on the mat. Hands stacking underneath your shoulders, knees stacking underneath your hips. Tuck your toes under. We're going to play with a little hovering bare knee and a down dog. You're going to move dynamically between the two shapes, hovering your knees just off the floor, controlling through the core, and then extending the legs and piking your bum up to the ceiling as you come into the down dog frame. Nice and strong through the core, nice and long through the back. Exhale every time you hit the down dog shape and try to drop your heels to the floor, and then hover those knees off the floor. Hold your little hovering bare knee for 10, 8, 6, 4. Don't collapse through the shoulders. Strong through the arms, strong through the core. Then relax your knees to the floor, but keep your toes tucked under with your feet tracking behind your knees as you peel up back into our little camel line. Nice tall kneel with your shoulders, your hips, and your knees in a long line. Open up your arms into a little cactus frame. We played with this one last week. As you camel lean off the center line, tap the 2 elbows together in front of you. Trying to keep your elbows more or less at about shoulder height. So as the arms start fatiguing, one tends to drop the elbows. Try to keep your arms as high as you can. Shooting for maybe 10 little lean backs with a tap. And then hold the last one. Sandwich the 2 arms together. Palms are looking towards you. Try to keep the forearms together as you think of softly tapping your fingertips towards the ceiling and then drawing your elbows back to your start position. Try to keep the elbows and the forearms sandwiched together as you lean just off the center line. You're going to feel the abdominals, you're going to feel the arms. Last one. Drop back to your 4-point kneeling frame. From here, we'll work a modified Chaturanga from your 4-point kneeling frame. You can either keep the legs hip-width distance apart, or you can sandwich the knees and the feet together. You're going to float your toes off the mat if you can. Alternatively, you can keep them softly connected to the mat. We're going to work a dynamic Chaturanga. You're going to give me a soft little bend through the elbow and then peel back to your start position. Either just dropping halfway down so that you can feel a little bit of work in the tricep area. If this is good for you, stay here. If you need more work, you're going to actively squeeze those elbows in and you're going to see how low you can drop. Maybe tapping your chest and your chin to the floor before peeling back to your start position. You're going to shoot for between 5 and 10 repetitions. Feet floating off the floor if you can manage it. And keep thinking of softly just hugging those elbows in towards the center line. Keep your belly button fused to your spine so you don't have your lower belly hanging on the floor. Let's shoot for 2 more. And then on your last one, I want you to come down as slowly as you can. So I really want you to feel those arms working, the core working, hover just off the floor. Relax softly down to the belly. And as you relax down to the belly, sweep the arms alongside you, back of the hands connected to the mat and the palms gently looking up to the ceiling. We're going to play with a little locust line and we'll break it up. Start with your legs, your arms and your forehead connected to the mat. We'll take it through a chest lift and an arm lift first. Pretend that you've got a little marble underneath your nose. Roll the marble away from you to the front of the mat. Start peeling up through the ribs. And at the same time, start floating the arms off the mat. Stopping just before your bottom rib disengages. Keep reaching through your crown and your fingertips. Holding that chest lift with your legs soft and relaxed and attached to the mat. No tension in your glutes. Then whisper softly with no sound at all. Peel back down to the mat. Syncing your movement so that your arms and your forehead tap the mat simultaneously. Take a recovery breath or 2. Then on the next round, we'll focus on the leg lift, keeping our arms and our head connected to the mat. Think of softly starting to float the feet and the legs off the mat, trying not to bend through the knees, focusing not on height, but on extension. As if somebody was standing behind you, gently pulling on your toes, trying to lengthen your leg line. You're going to feel the lower belly and the 2 hip bones digging into the mat. Remember this leg lift. We're going to use it dynamically when we play in swan. Without making a sound, softly reconnect your legs to the mat. Take maybe 2 or 3 recovery breaths. And then you're going to think of coming into a full locust, marrying your chest lift and your leg lift. And we'll work first with a little pulse. So you're going to simultaneously lift the legs, the chest, and the arms, finding your locust frame, giving me 2 little pulses, and then softly floating back down to the mat. Softly peeling back down. If double pulsing is too much for you, maybe just a single hold and then a float back down. Use that nice active shooting breath that we played with earlier on. Connect to that little steam pot that's trying to get rid of the air pressure. On your last one, you're going to hold your locust line, giving me a somewhat bow frame through the back, reaching through your fingertips, your toes and your crown, resting on the hip bones and the lower belly. If that curved spine is too much work for your back, you can drop your body line lower to the mat with your nose, your arms, and your feet hovering just off the mat. So play with it and see what works for you today. Then gently, gently peel back down to the mat. Take a recovery breath or two. And as you're recovering breath-wise, bend your elbows and place your palms alongside your chest. Elbows stay tucked in towards the center line. We're going to find our way into a swan line. And I'd like you to draw your hands back slightly so that your hands are towards the lower end of your rib cage, not in line with your chest, slightly further back than you would usually have them in a cobra line. We'll articulate up slowly, come back down with the same amount of control, and then we'll begin to rock. Find a little marble underneath your nose, begin rolling it away to the top end of the mat. Peel up slowly and stop with your bottom 3 ribs heavy into the mat, dropping your elbow points away from your body line and trying to grow through your back. Then push up a little bit higher, just the bottom rib connecting. Push up higher still, belly button connected. Higher still, 2 hip bones connected. Higher still, big bone connected. Higher still, the tops of your thighs still touching the mat. And then come into full extension so that you're resting on your palms and your kneecaps. Shoot for the longest spine that you can, so try not to collapse your frame. You're pushing strongly off the mat and you're trying to grow a beautiful, graceful swan-like neck. Come down with the same amount of control. Small little micro bend as you connect first the top of your thighs. And your pubic bone, your 2 hip bones, your belly button, your bottom rib, your bottom 3 ribs. The rest of your rib cage follows, and as soon as your forehead taps the mat, lift and float the legs behind you, executing your leg lift. Now dynamically marry your swan with your leg lift. Push up into the swan, bend the elbows, and as you come down, float your legs off the mat so that it feels like you're pistoning the arms up and down, getting a good workout into the arms. Exhale as you come down. Inhale as you push up into the swan. Exhale as you bring the chest down and float the legs off the mat behind you. Find your little pressure cooker breath. Last one. From here, we're going to gently push back into child pose. Big toes together, knees open, nice and wide. Extend the arms, push back. If you need to, you can soften your arm line, coming into more of a soft cactus frame, and just thinking of softly draping your hands, your wrists, your forearms, and your elbows on the mat so that there's no tension at all on the arms. Take a couple of recovery breaths. Remember that child pose is here whenever you need to take a little time out. From here, we'll ease our way into a down dog frame. Think of coming through 4-point kneeling. Tuck your toes under, float your bum up to the ceiling, finding a wide down dog. We're going to marry it with an up dog, coming through a plank line, not collapsing, so strong through the core and the arms. Exhale as you hit the down dog frame, piking your bum up to the ceiling. Come through a plank line with control, strong through the arms, strong through the core, curving your back slightly, keeping your toes tucked under, and begin moving dynamically between the two. Maybe a nice big inhale as you come into the up dog, and then a nice strong exhale as you hit the down dog. Find a rhythm that works for you. Playing between the down dog, Adho Mukha Shavasana, and the up dog, Adho Mukha Shavasana. Last one. Hold your up dog frame for maybe 10 seconds if you can. Strong through the arms, strong through the core. Don't load your lower back and collapse your frame. Then exhale actively to hit the down dog. Take a little recovery stretch here, trying to anchor down through the back chain of your legs. And then ease your way onto your fingertips, relax your knees, and take a little bunny hop forward. As you hop forward, we're going to come straight into a warrior three. You're going to bleed up, come into about a tabletop line, drag the right big toes behind you, and float up into a warrior three line. Either keeping aeroplane arms, or maybe you'd like to float the arms in front of you and frame your ears on either side. Just play with it. See what works for you. Trying to stay square through the shoulders and the hips. And then take a big step back, angling out the back foot at 45 and float into a warrior one frame. Back leg is angled in slightly at 45 so that both of your hip bones are looking to the front of the mat. You're bending the lead leg, trying to stack your knee over your ankle, and you're trying to stay even through the shoulders and the hips. Take a few strong breaths here. Lengthen your lower belly as you reach the fingertips for the sky. Then drop your hands either side of the lead leg and step back into a strong plank hold. Weight distribution equal on the arms and the legs, so you're not leaning forward into the wrist line and nor are you pushing back aggressively into the heels. Your weight distribution is equal. Hold. We're going to find a balancing star or a side plank on the right. Flip your body to the right, either knife edging your feet or stacking one leg on top of the other, opening up the top arm and the top leg if you can. If you need to, you can modify your frame by bending the bottom leg and extending the top, and then when you feel comfortable, float the top arm and the leg up to find your balancing star. Ease your way from here back into your plank line. You're going to take a little frog hop to the side of each arm. You can either step it up one leg at a time, or if you're feeling adventurous, you can give me a little simultaneous hop and come into a deep squat, bringing your hands to prayer in front of your heart, actively using your elbow points to gently push open, thinking of opening up beautifully through the groin as you push those inner thighs open. You can either stay here in your low squat, or you can bring it into a little arm balance, crow pose. I'll give you a side view and then a front view. You're going to drop your hands to the mat, placing your hands more or less shoulder width apart. You're going to heel toe your feet in, coming into an almost plie line with the weight on your toes, your heels touching, and your knees pointing out to the side of the room. Hands are on the mat just in front of you. Bend your elbows and make a little resting spot on your tricep, somewhere between your armpit and your elbow, that you can squeeze and rest the knees into. As you find that resting spot, look off the front of the mat if you're new to crow, so that you don't tip your weight forward and nose dive into the mat. Look off the front of the mat using your nose and your chin as a counterbalance. Squeeze the knees into center, lean the weight into your tricep, draw up along the lower abdominals and your inner thigh, and see if you can float one foot off the mat. If that feels good, try to replicate on the other side. Big toes maybe touching and the knees softly resting on your triceps as you find crow Bakasana. If that's not working for you, maybe just focus on finding your setup frame and leaning your knees into your triceps, trying to find that connection between your inner thighs and your lower abs as you gently rock forward. Then come back to your setup frame, finding that almost butterfly or frog-like line with the weight on your toes, your heels touching, and the knees wide. Float the arms out in front, or maybe just place them on your knees or your hips. Come into a standing frame, trying to keep that foot line with the weight on your toes and the heels touching, and maybe float your body up and down a few times, looking for balance, looking for control. Taking a bit of a recovery at the same time. Then stand up nice and tall. If you're on the tall side, just take a step to the front of the mat so that you've got enough room behind you. You're going to find that warrior 3 shape on side 2. Either arms at your side as you begin sliding the left leg behind you, coming into a tabletop line. Maybe aeroplane arms, maybe hands on your hips, or maybe floating the arms alongside. Wherever you decide to place, try to stay even through the shoulders and the hips. So try not to pop and rotate on one side. Virabhadrasana 3, warrior 3. Shooting for a nice tabletop line through the spine, the back, and the hip. And then take a big step back. Bend the lead leg, ankle the back foot in slightly at 45. Float the arms overhead. And maybe start creeping your front leg forward as you set up your warrior 1 line. Virabhadrasana 1. Both hips are looking to the front of the mat. Ease your way from here gently into your plank line. Drop both hands either side the lead leg. Step back into the strong plank. Look for that sense of control through the core. Don't collapse through the shoulders or the arms. Hold for at least 10 seconds and then begin to flip to the left. We're going to find our side plank and we'll open up into balancing style. When you're ready, flip, either stacking or knife edging your feet. See if you can float the top arm and the top leg up towards the ceiling so that you look almost like a little star shape, maybe a little starfish. Keep looking for strength in that bottom arm. Ease your way softly back to your plank line, nice and strong. We're going to take that frog hop or step coming into deep squat when you're ready. Find your way into Malasana. Drawing the hands into prayer, actively pushing into the palms and using your tricep and your elbows to pry those inner thighs open. Drop down through your bum bones. Trying to keep your feet fully connected to the floor if you can. And you can take your squat line as narrow or as wide as you need to. Remember, we are all anatomically different, so do what feels good and what works for your body. We're going to find our way from here into our Bakasana, our crow setup. Drop your fingertips to the mat. Start heel-toeing your legs in. Set up your setup frame with the weight on the toes, heels off and touching along the midline. Place your hands, palms down on the mat, hands more or less shoulder width apart. Give me a little bend and allow those elbows to track out. Find a resting spot on your tricep. Remember, if you're new to Bakasana, use your nose and your chin as a counterbalance. Look off the front of the mat as you lean your weight forward and squeeze actively with the knees into your arms. See if you can float one foot off the mat, if that feels good. Do the same on the other side. Looking for stillness, looking for control. Remember that the control from Bakasana doesn't come through having strong arms, although that does help. It's about your core connection and finding that sense of balance. Everything is controlled through the core. Ease your way back into your setup frame with the weight on your toes, heels softly touching and floating off the mat. Maybe hands on your knees or maybe on your hips or float it out in front as you float up into a standing frame, keeping that tiptoe position with the heels touching and then bringing it back down. Just float up and down softly a few times, taking your body into a little bit of a recovery. And when you've done about 3 or 4 floats, we're going to end low to the mat and we're going to find our way into a boat hold. Maybe dropping the hands back behind you, taking a seat, switch your way to the front of the mat as you come into your boat. Maybe keeping it basic, holding behind your thighs, floating your hands alongside or coming into the full expression if you can manage it. Then drop your legs to the mat. Keep your feet sandwiched together on this one. We're going to bring it into an inverted plank, Padavottanasana. And you can either keep the feet together as you drop onto the soles of your feet, Or you could try Ving your feet out and knife edging them as you come into the inverted plank. And we'll play it up today, taking it into a single leg lift if you can manage it. Sit up nice and tall, finding that staff frame that we played with together. Your feet are sandwiched together along the midline of the body. You can either give me a flat hand, fingertips looking towards your toes, or if your wrists line are feeling a bit tender, you can give me a fisted line. I'll play with both. All right, so you're going to draw your hands back behind your shoulder line. Think of that elbow lean that we did earlier on. You're going to think of dropping the soles of your feet to the mat, so make sure you've got enough playroom on the mat. And you're going to float your hips up towards the ceiling, holding this frame. If this feels uncomfortable for you, change your setup. Maybe give me a small V and knife edge your feet as you come up. Then see if you can float one leg off, holding for maybe 5 or 10 seconds. And then change sides. Strong through the arms, strong through the core. Softly float back down to the mat. Find your seat. Give me a little starburst through the hands just to release them, and then find your way into a gate line from here. Extending the right leg, bending the left, and trying to tuck the heel as close to your bottom as you can. Maybe giving me an L-like shape between the two legs. If this is too acute of an angle for your knee, you can bring that line in slightly. If this feels really uncomfortable, you can change the leg setup and maybe bend your leg in the opposite direction and place the sole of the foot on the inseam of your extended leg. So just experiment, see what's working for you today. Find your gate line and then just softly fold forward. Maybe to just place the hands on your shin bone or the top of your thigh, or to drape your arms down to the floor. If you've got the range of motion, you can perhaps reach for your toes or the undercarriage of your foot. You could use a belt. You could even use a block, modifying, maybe finding a lean-in position on the inside of the leg, or using the block to hook around your foot and to pull in towards the center line. So just play with it, make it your own. Come into gate, Paringasana. Taking a few deep breaths here. Either staying here in your gate or finding your way into a side gate, Prasarita Paringasana. Take your right elbow and drop it to the inside of that extended leg, actively pushing with the elbow against the inseam of the leg. You could use a block to support that elbow if you're struggling to connect it to the mat. And then maybe floating the other arm overhead, either just giving me a long reach, or maybe bringing that arm closer towards your ear line and shooting for a grip position, maybe around your pinky toe. Almost think of peeping around your top elbow up towards the ceiling. So get a nice stretch into the trunk, into the belly area. You can stay here or you can mix it up. Change the angle of the bottom arm, floating the arm in, tucking it underneath your feet and reaching for the ankle bone of the bottom leg, or rather the back leg. Baddha Paringasana, bound gate. Keep peeking around that arm towards the ceiling. When you're ready to come out, start unbinding. Extend both legs long and lengthened on the mat in front of you. Give it a little shake out. Clip the two legs together. Interlace your hands, invert them and push them away from you, and try to lean forward and hook your hands over your feet. If that's not happening, you can mix it up by using your block to hook over the feet, or open up your legs a little bit wider and insert the block between the two legs and just find a comfortable lean-in position. If you do have a strap or a hand towel, you could use that as a prop to hook around your feet. Play with it. See what works for you. Hold your soft Paschimottanasana. If the back of your knees are really tight, maybe just give me a soft pedaling-like motion until you've gotten the back of your legs to release, and then try to hold the stretch. Peel softly up along the center, looking for length through the spine. We're going to rinse and repeat on the other side. Keep your left leg extended. I'm going to angle slightly out so that you can see me. You're going to open up into your little L frame between the two legs, and you're going to softly lean towards your extended leg, maybe both hands on the top of your thighs, maybe forearms on the mat, maybe hooking around the foot, using your strap, using your block, modifying as you need to. Take a few generous breaths here, and then either stay here in your gate line, Paringasana, or take the left elbow, put it on the inside of the leg. Actively open up the other arm to the ceiling, or maybe bring the arm closer towards your ear, maybe shooting for a bind position around the pinky toe. Either staying here or changing the angle on the bottom arm, floating the fingertips in towards your perineum, lifting slightly off the mat, tucking the arm underneath your foot to grab hold of the ankle of the back leg. Hold your bound twisted gait. Take a couple of nice deep breaths into the the right side of your ribs. Then when you're ready to gently unpeel, retrace your path back to a nice high seat. Shake your legs out, clip the 2 feet together, interlace your hands, invert them. As you lean forward, try to hook them over your toes if you can. Maybe gently bending on the elbows, trying to increase that stretch. Getting an awesome stretch into the arms as you release the lower back. Keep your belly button softly pulled into center. Just take a couple of nice deep breaths here, trying to breathe as deeply as you can into the back of your ribs. Then gently unbind. If you're on the tall side, creep to the front of your mat and give me one fall back to come into Shavasana. Sitting up nice and tall. Feet are either sandwiched together or you can open them up. Nod your chin to your chest, start rounding out. As soon as your lower back connects to the mat, float the arms and the legs off the mat, giving me that little hollow hold. That last little contraction, bit of work through the core. Your lower back is imprinted, weight is off the shoulders, about 2 fingers of air between the chin and the chest. Strong contraction in the core holding that frame. Then softly collapse your body down to the mat and find your way into corpse pose. Arms at your side, palms looking up to the ceiling. Allow the big toes to flop to the corner of your mat so that you look like a soft little starfish. Lift both shoulder blades off the mat, then tuck them behind you and start settling the whole weight of your body into the mat. Close your eyes, take your focus inward. If you need to, you can take a hand towel or maybe a soft piece of clothing and just drape it over your eyes to darken the room if you're struggling to switch off and take your focus inward. Just start softening and lengthening your breath work. Shooting for relaxed inhalations and exhalations. Then think of focusing on your belly button line, your Manipuraka chakra, your solar plexus. You're going to think of tensing your abdominals and allow that tenseness to extend from your belly button line all the way to your toes, maybe bracing into the heels of your feet. On a soft sighing exhale, relax from your belly button all the way down to the toes. Feel like the legs are just 2 limp noodles relaxed on the mat. Bring your focus and your attention back to your solar plexus, your belly button. Try to tense from your belly button all the way through the chest, into the head and the arms, maybe fisting your hands. On the inhale, Then on a soft, sighing exhale, relax from your belly button to the chest, through the arms, all the way to the crown and the fingertips. But keep your fingertips softly curled so that there's no tension at all in your hands. Focus again on your belly center, your solar plexus, and start trying to imagine energy radiating out from the belly button, bleeding its way to your toes, your fingertips, and your crowns, softening and relaxing your body with each exhale. Keep your eyes closed and your focus inward, and try to generate that sense of softness, that sense of relaxing after a good workout. Almost feel like your body is starting to dissolve into the mat with each successive exhale. Try to keep your inhalations and your exhalations exclusively through the nose if you can manage it. Long, soft, relaxed inhalations and exhalations. Run a scan. Try to notice if you're tensing anywhere in the body. Mindfully, just tell yourself to let go. Dissolve yourself into the mat. Stay here in Shavasana, corpse pose, for as long as you need to end off your practice for today. When you are ready to come out of corpse pose, you can gently maybe flutter open the eyes, but just keep them soft and unfocused. Bend the knees, maybe connecting the soles of your feet to the mat, allowing your lower back an opportunity to just relax into the mat. And then perhaps ending off your practice by drawing your hands into Kriya Mudra in front of you, and maybe just tapping either your thumbs or your index fingers to your nose as you end off with the words Namaste. Stay on your back for as long as you need to. Remember, when you come out, maybe roll onto your side, taking a few recovery breaths first before you push up into a seated frame, remembering to bring up your head last. Thank you so much for coming out and joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed today's class. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Remember to shoot and share your comments below, and to always make sure that your channel notifications are turned on. Have an amazing day and be ready for Pilates on the mat tomorrow. Till then, keep it light.